Welcome to an episode of Chat Cinema. I'm here with the award-winning filmmakers, Tom and Ross. You'll love their film. It's called Roy. It got longlisted for the BAFTA. I'm going to keep this fast and simple and try to avoid spoilers if I can. All right, first thing, talk about good timing. I think we can all sympathize with Roy right now, especially during the lockdowns and trying to reach out to people. Did you guys make this or start the idea of this movie before the lockdowns or during the lockdowns?
We actually did. We wrote it before the pandemic even began, but then when we came to film it, we were just in that sort of first lockdown period. So when we came to film, we sort of realized that it was going to take on this new kind of relevance and resonance that we hadn't really kind of prepared for when we first started it. So yeah, it was this sort of serendipity kind of thing happened. Yeah.
I think we can all sympathize with Roy at this moment. All right, let me ask you guys something then. The approach that Roy takes to I guess fending off his loneliness. It was a bit offbeat. Now, how did you come up with that? Was that someone in your family, someone you knew? I mean, what was the reference point?
That was just something we were speaking a lot about, sort of about connection, really, and then we just had this image of it. Just felt like it's sort of a tragic thing to do, to go through the phone book. That's what he does. For those who haven't seen the film, he sort of goes through the phone book and sort of cold calls these random numbers, just looking to speak to anyone who will give him the time of day, really. So we just really came across that, and it just felt like a really clear way to quickly set up his world and who he was, and the kind of the position he finds himself in at the start of the movie.
Mhm. All right. My next question is, were you a bit nervous about making this film? Because it felt like a bit of a, I mean, forgive me for saying this, I could be wrong, a bit of a handicap because you had him basically in one set sitting in a chair. I mean, that was a big obstacle, I would think. I'm trying to make
No,
that interesting for 15 minutes, just talking.
You're no, you're correct, but it was a self-imposed handicap that we gave ourselves because this is our first film, and we wanted to limit the number of characters, the number of locations we had, so that we could really focus on the story and do a bit of a character study. So we put those parameters on ourselves. But you're right, when it came to it and we came to sort of storyboard and work it out, we just wanted to try and capture the kind of essence of somebody who's stuck and who is kind of trapped in a routine, but without it feeling too kind of monotonous and sort of taking attention away from him. We kind of tried to balance that, and I think David Bradley's performance is a lot to do with that, in how much he kind of captures people and keeps attention throughout it.
Yeah, okay, good, because you segue into David. Now that performance, he really gave a great performance. Now, how did you get him for that role, and how did you coach him for it? Because he was fantastic. I mean, he is the movie.
Oh yeah, well exactly. We kind of knew that because the film never leaves him. I think there's so few frames without him in the film. He's pretty much there for the whole 15 minutes. So in terms of getting David on board, we literally just wrote him a letter with the unsolicited script and just said, look, we write when we wrote this, we sort of had you in mind the whole time. Writers sometimes say that, but it was really true with us. We were thinking of him the whole time, and we just thought, on a whim, look, it's our first ever film. We give it a read and see if you like it. And he's so generous as a man that he did read it and he liked it. And yeah, we just got very fortunate that he sort of wanted to come on board with it. In terms of coaching him, as you said, like there wasn't a lot really for us to do. He's such a seasoned pro. It was
Oh
sort
yeah.
of he connected with the characters so instinctively, and he's got such a great sense of humor as well that comes through, that it was really about us just sort of steering him through the story as we kind of saw it, and having those conversations with him, and seeing what his thoughts were as well. And yeah, it was just a treat to work with, really.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm going to add a question. Let me ask you. I wouldn't call this really a story about dysfunctional relationships. I think it's just about life. I mean, how would you describe the relationships in the film?
I think you're right. I think it is an unlikely friendship that sort of blossoms, but it's the initial essence was we wanted to capture something that was about connection in what we feel like is becoming a disconnected world, and I think
Mm,
that's kind of true all over. So I think the fact that they come from these two very different starting points is just, I think it's probably just a way to kind of highlight how how sort of vital we are to each other despite those differences. And we tried to capture the sort of nuance of this experience of grieving and of losing a partner later in life in a way that sort of captured the humor as well, that is there kind of through everything, so that it did feel like it was true to life. So I think that was what we're trying to aim for. Is it felt honest as a relationship.
Very much so. All right, last question. Of course, I ask of every filmmaker, what's your next movie? When are you guys going to go to feature films?
Well, we've
We're waiting.
actually made another short in the interim. So our second short film, An Irish Goodbye, is just starting its film festival circuit at the moment. But yeah, feature film wise, who knows? We're hoping to sort of start to develop some longer form stuff in the next few months and really, yeah, move forward with that in the next year or so. So
Special effects or character driven?
Character driven, I reckon.
I think you could probably guess that, having seen Roy, that there'll always be character driven dialogue pieces. But who knows? We might be doing, Star Wars, 43 by the time it's made.
Well, they could use the help, believe it or not. Thank you guys so much. And I have my fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.